from News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DePoint.
Hello and welcome, and it's great to have you with us today. Donald Trump says that he was expecting more people to trounce on him at the last debate. That didn't happen. Instead, the real barbs came between second and third place candidates, Cruz and Rubio.
There was a battle over amnesty, and some chose, like Senator Rubio, to stand with Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and support a massive amnesty plan.
As far as Ted's record, I'm always puzzled by his attack on this issue. Ted, you support legalizing people who are in this country illegally.
For Marco to suggest our record's the same, it is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire.
And here today to sort it all out, we have Republican strategist Bob Rustbald and strategist commentator Mindy Finn. Welcome to both of you. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
So what do you make of that last debate? I mean, Trump, here he is ahead 40 points in the polls right now, pretty much across the board nationally. So why weren't we seeing all of the other candidates really ganging up on him? He's the front runner.
The primary reason is because they all want his supporters when he drops out, and they don't want to offend the Trump base, those angry voters out there that are going to vote Republican and want to vote Republican, but they don't want to alienate that base in the Republican Party. And by not having a clear winner in this debate, Trump actually ends up being the winner, because there was nobody who really stood out, and it really turned into sort of a Cruz-Rubio two-person debate, and a lot of people predict those may be the last two standing at the end of the day.
Would you agree with that, Mindy?
Yeah, we also see what happens when you take on Trump. I mean, Jeb Bush tried. He came in with a few lines that were quite good. You're a chaos candidate. You're not going to insult your way to the presidency. And he came off looking pretty good. But Trump, I mean, really got some digs in on him as well, saying, like, basically, be quiet. I'm at 40-something% and you're at 3%. So I don't think any of the other candidates really want to engage in that kind of debate. If they don't have to, they would rather engage on the substance of some of these key issues that they think the election will ultimately hinge on.
Well, in addition to wanting to get his supporters, Bob, do you think that some of the candidates are really just afraid to go after Trump? I mean, he blusters all the time.
Well, he's unpredictable and he's bombastic. And instead of talking about the issues, when you saw when Cruz and Rubio were debating, it was a very substantive debate on immigration and national security and those sorts of issues. When you debate Trump, it's about your looks, your personality, your style, where you are in the polls. It's not about substance. So when you have very substantive candidates, policy-oriented candidates like John Kasich and Marco Rubio and people like that, they don't want to talk about Trump's ties. They want to talk about real issues.
Or his hair.
Or his hair.
Or whatever.
Right.
Or his wives.
Yeah.
Since Paris, since San Bernardino, Mindy, everything really has turned to national security and fighting ISIS. Which of the candidates do you think really scored high in that area, national security?
Yeah, I think, it really kind of depends what style you like. Ted Cruz did quite well. The voters and really strategists were looking to see how is this Cruz-Rubio interplay going to take place. And Cruz did appear very tough and passionate. But Marco Rubio always has a very good grasp on a plan. He talks substantively about what he likes to do, not just about that it's a threat and that we're going to take the fight to ISIS, but here's my plan, step 1, 2, 3. I think in future debates, we're going to have to look for them to get even more substantive and detailed on those plans. It can't just be, you heard over and over from the candidates, we're going to take the fight to ISIS, we take this threat seriously, we're going to defeat them. That's not enough.
Yeah. Now you have Cruz, who's rising in the polls, especially in Iowa, and he and Donald Trump say they're friends. They like each other. Maybe that's why they didn't go after each other. They both want to build this wall, this huge wall, and I think Cruz says, I'll build it and Donald will pay for it, or something. They made a joke of it. But do you think that friendship is sort of why they're trying to keep things cordial at this point?
No.
No.
I think it all comes down to voters, and they're both going after the same set of voters. They're both going after the core base, instinct type of Republicans in the primaries. So it doesn't have to, politics is not about friendship, it's about votes. And Cruz does not want to offend the Trump supporters. But at the end of the day, my prediction is that Cruz is going to win Iowa. He has no chance of winning New Hampshire. And you're going to see the Kasichs, the Bushes, and the Rubios do better in New Hampshire than they're going to do in Iowa, where a lot of them are not really competing in Iowa. So you're going to have sort of the conservative type emerge from Iowa, which I think will be Ted Cruz, and then you will have the more, for lack of a better term, establishment Republican emerge from New Hampshire, and then those groups will go on from New Hampshire.
All right, so Mindy, after Iowa and then after New Hampshire, middle of the country, Northeast, then you got to win the South and the West. How do you predict the other candidates will fare when things turn to other areas of the country?
Yeah, I think it's quite fascinating because you could see a Cruz winning Iowa. It looks like that's going to happen. A different candidate win New Hampshire. And then, typically the candidates bank on those two states really drive momentum and allow a candidate to get the leg up in these other states. But because if the field is still so divided with this as many, we will have some candidates drop out after New Hampshire, but I don't think it'll winnow down to 2 or 3. I think we could still have 6 or 7. Another candidate altogether could win South Carolina. I would not be surprised if I were betting on it today. I would say we'll have 3 different candidates that win Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, which will mean that headed into Super Tuesday, headed into early March, that will be the date that we all want to look to say, will we know our nominee coming out of March? I'm not confident that we will. There's a chance, but I think this thing could really drag on farther into the spring and into the summer. A lot of these candidates have money. They have super PACs. With billionaire donors that can support their campaign and for the long haul. And if 3 different candidates win those 3 early states, we're looking at a longer primary than we might have expected.
Wow, this could really be volatile after the first 3 races or so. What do you think, Bob, as far as which candidates have the best ground roots operations going in states other than the early states? The ones that could potentially have legs for later in the season.
Well, just for New Hampshire, because I've been there twice in the last couple of weeks with the Kasich campaign as an advisor, and the organization up there is interesting. People like John Kasich and Chris Christie actually have very good organizations in New Hampshire with great endorsements, great people on the ground, and great mega data that they're mining up there. Interestingly, the Bush ground game doesn't look to me, having just been there, all that strong in New Hampshire. He's doing more of an air war, spending tens of millions of dollars in New Hampshire. But once you leave there and you look south, that sort of SEC primaries they're calling them, and then you look Midwest Michigan, you have the governors like Bush has some organization in the South, obviously having been a 2-term governor of Florida. You have Kasich very strong in states like Michigan, where he has a very good organization. It's tough for me to see where Chris Christie goes after New Hampshire. He doesn't have much organization out of New Hampshire. So you look at a Ted Cruz. He has great organization in those SEC states, and he has a lot of dough. So you're going to have the Cruzes, I think, are in for the long haul. Bush still has $67 million in the bank. That's a lot of money, even though he's very low in the polls. But New Hampshire is going to shake up the landscape in the race. So
it's about money and organization as we go further into the season. You mentioned Chris Christie, and we need to talk about his performance during the debate. He made it to the main stage this time, so that was an improvement. But what about this hawkish tone, not only from Christie, but from several of the candidates? Cruz says, America is at war. If I'm elected president, we'll hunt down and kill the terrorists. We will utterly destroy ISIS. Christie said he would carpet bomb the Muslims and he would shoot down Russian jets. And of course, we've already heard from Trump. He says he wants to ban all Muslims from coming into this country, cut off internet access to suspected jihadists, and kill ISIS family members. Huge hawkish tone from many of the candidates. Is this the kind of tone that's going to resonate with voters, not just in the primary fight, but as we head into the general election?
It's interesting. If you look at the rhetoric that is coming out in many instances, half of it's unconstitutional, what Donald Trump is saying. I mean, it's a major violation of First Amendment rights to bar people based on religion coming into the country. But then again, Hillary Clinton just yesterday said that she's going to ban by executive order guns and magazines and all the rest of those sorts of things, which is unconstitutional as well. Having said that, the rhetoric has been so ramped up in this campaign, in my opinion, almost unprecedented, where it's really got people riled up. At the end of the day, the governors, the Chris Christies, the Jeb Bushes, the John Kasichs have executive experience that I think is still going to show the voting Republican base that these people have to make decisions. They're ready to be president. Legislators generally are never ready to be president.
Mindy, about this rhetoric, this hawkish rhetoric, and Christie, I mean, talking about wanting to bomb Russian jets. Some people are saying this is reckless. He could possibly be inciting a World War III. What do you think?
This has been a race that's been all about grabbing headlines. All the candidates are looking at someone like Donald Trump and thinking he has a way of getting into the media every single day, and look how it's translated into the polls. And so at this point, if you're a candidate like Chris Christie, who has really struggled to gain traction, he's someone who just a couple years ago, if you polled very early on this presidential race, had hugely high approval ratings, but he's really struggled to gain traction. He's been faded into the background. So at this point, he says, I'm pulling out all the stops. If I have to say something that's really wild and bombastic and show this kind of toughness to get a headline, I'm going to do it. And so that's what we see happening. I think the concern is, primary voters are looking for who can draw the best contrast with Hillary Clinton. And all the candidates were trying to do that on that stage. But as we get into a general election, will some of that come back to bite them, or will they be able to move to the center? I think we've seen that, after a lot of time goes by, that voters kind of forget this is so hyper-covered. Hillary said some things in this primary that would hurt her in a general as well. And so I think at this point they're just focused on the primary, making sure that they can appear to be tough enough to take on Hillary Clinton and draw the greatest contrast in terms of taking the fight to the terrorists.
But at the same time, do you think that the Republican debate, especially Tuesday night, sort of was a gift for Hillary Clinton, making her sound or seem like the steady voice of reason among all this kind of craziness?
Yeah, I mean, what's challenging right now is that Hillary's really flying under the radar, and they're probably thrilled to do so because all the focus is on Donald Trump and on the Republican candidates. The challenge for Republicans is making sure that there's still coverage of Hillary and what she's saying on the trail and what she's doing. I mean, their Democratic debates have been held on a Saturday. Their next one is coming up on Saturday.
Yeah.
That is in no way going to get the same kind of attention as
all right, last
debates.
comment here. Bob, it's tough to get over the loudness of what Donald Trump has become in this campaign. How can the other candidates sort of break through and be heard?
They've got to stop Trump from getting all the free media coverage because it's worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. Interestingly, NBC and some other networks are giving the other candidates free advertising time to make up for when Trump was on Saturday Night Live and those sorts of things. But at the end
he's on television every time you turn it on.
Exactly.
Right?
I agree. I think that at the end of the day, Republican voters want to win the White House. They want the candidate at the end of the day that is going to beat Hillary Clinton. That is not Donald Trump. And you saw the last poll that came out the day before the debate. He's losing by 10 points to Hillary Clinton, whereas Marco Rubio beats Hillary Clinton in a general election today, as do other candidates. So Republicans want to win. If they want to win, Donald Trump is not the guy that's going to take back the White House. All
right, we got a little bit of a lull here with the holidays, and then it'll be back to full force come January. Bob Rustbald and Mindy Finn, strategists, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Interesting conversation. And we'll take a quick break right here. We'll be back with more News Talk right after this.